And we're live. Welcome to the, we're in August now, right? The August meeting of PDA South Orange County, our Revolution, Southern California. We're just gonna play a couple of videos real quick while we're waiting to see who wants to join us this evening. And then we've got the Orange County DA's candidate who will be challenging Todd Spitzer. We have Peter Hardin coming to talk to us about his platform and why criminal justice reform is so important and how DA, the position of DA, can really help us get that done. So right now, though, we're going to go ahead and screen share and play some of our recent actions.
Catella and Harbor, where Disneyland employees and union workers are here to demand that Disneyland provide fair working conditions for the cast members.
All right, so there's that. Let me cancel out of there. So thank you both for being here right now. I'm going to just go through some chapter business real quick. Our guest speaker, Tay, thanks for joining us, is Pete Hardin, our Orange County DA candidate who will be challenging Todd Spitzer. And he should be joining us approximately at 4:30. So I'm just going to go over some chapter business really quickly. So we are a chapter for PDA. We are PDA South Orange County, and you can get involved by going to PDA America. This is the weekly review and some of the things that they've been doing recently on a national level. What seems to be going on is the locals, some of the local chapters organize street actions. PDA is definitely putting more emphasis on street actions, but there's a transition involved because we've been in a pandemic, right? So it depends on who you're working with and where you're working and how comfortable people are with that. So that is this portion of the website, but it's pdamerica.org. To get involved, you can volunteer. There's phone banking, text banking. They generally endorse progressive Democrats, the squad, Pramila Jayapal, everybody that is going to fight for Medicare for all and for a Green New Deal in Congress. And obviously, we definitely want to keep lifting up the organization. So if you can donate anything, if you can become a sustaining donor, I was, prior to being unemployed, donating $5 a month, but whatever you can do to get involved and lift them up would be helpful. So they do have a donation page, and they probably the thing that they do most regularly, it's called Educate Congress, but they've transitioned it into what's called a liaison program. So that's a little bit more in depth. Previously, what we had been working on was dropping letters to encourage our congressional representatives to advance or fight against certain bills in Congress, depending on what that is. And what we would do is write the letter, customize it for our representative, depending on their position on the topic, and go to their office in person and hopefully take a picture in front of their seal, or even better, with them delivering that letter, so that we are lobbying our representatives. So Tay, this is one of the vehicles that Jeff Campbell was using in Florida to get 20 of the congressional reps to sign on to the Medicare for All bill, was PDA. From what I understand, he works pretty closely with PDA out there. So that's their big thing. The liaison program is a little bit more involved, where you're trying to actually get meetings and have an ongoing relationship with your congressional rep or your US Senator. This also filters down into their state PAC, which is PDACA, and PDACA lobbies at the state level. So it's assembly members and state senators and such to get actions accomplished. So that's kind of the bare bones of what PDA is about. It's kind of in a transition right now. I think they're reinventing themselves. And so hopefully we'll see some good things come out of that. We basically have about 20 minutes to kill. I think I covered the base. Oh, you know what I did not tell you is the background of PDA. So PDA was started by Tim Carpenter, and or he was the first leader, I guess, or executive director of PDA. And what basically, it was formed by the former supporters of Dennis Kucinich and Howard Dean. And they were disappointed that John Kerry had advanced in the 2004 election primary out of the Democratic Party. And so they formed PDA as basically an activist group that had an inside-outside strategy. They worked to try and advance progressives within the party so that they would have a seat at the table, be able to influence the bylaws and the platform of the Democratic Party. But they also worked outside in a nonpartisan way to do street actions and put pressure on the Democratic Party and Congress and government in a nonpartisan way. So that's kind of the background and history. They have issue teams. And I think probably the most successful issue team is Dr. Bill's Medicare for All town halls that happen on a weekly basis on Sunday. And of everything that I've heard on Twitter, of all the nonsense of we're doing nothing, that is probably the most regular and most successful organizing effort around Medicare for All that is routinely happening on a weekly basis and bringing in the experts and the not only just the experts, but also the progressives who are either candidates or are in office at various office who support Medicare for All legislation to talk on the subject. And that happens on a weekly basis. He also covers a lot of COVID stats and facts. So that's what's been happening over the last, well, he started those Medicare for All town halls right when we got into the pandemic. And I think he was initially doing them twice a week, and now he's doing them once a week. But they are on Sundays at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. So I'm going to stop my screen share. Hopefully we didn't lose David. David, you're still there, right? So I'm going to put you guys, I stopped my screen.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so we only have a couple of you tonight. And Tay, just so you know, we're also, a lot of our volunteers in California right now are working on phone banking to get the vote out for the no on the GOP recall, because the GOP is trying to recall Governor Newsom right now. And we have 1 month to get out the vote. Basically, the ballots are going to start showing up in the mail tomorrow. So for our viewing audience, especially Californians, make sure that you're checking your mailbox every day this week. If you don't get your ballot this week, go to your local registrar and find out where your ballot is, get it reissued if need be. Make sure you're double checking your registration, because it's incredibly important that we vote no on this recall, and don't let the GOP install Larry Elders, who is he is further to the right than Trump. So it would be devastating for us. We would have absolutely no protection against COVID. We would not be getting any resources whatsoever to get vaccinations. This would be devastating for us. So please check your mailboxes, please vote. I know a lot of people don't even know that this vote is happening, and that's why people are so adamant that they need to spend their time phone banking right now, because we have to get out the vote. We need people to vote right now. So I'm going to put us on the gallery view. Did I already do? Why isn't it showing me gallery view? It's not doing it. Okay, well, anyway, could I have each of you just say a little bit about yourselves, where you're from, and what your involvement in politics is?
Am I up? Oh, I'm unmuted. Okay. Hi. Yeah, I go by Tay. I live in New Jersey. I'm on the East Coast. Basically, the extent of like what I've done in politics is I joined Wolfpack a few years ago when we were trying to pass the resolution to get money out of politics. And it happened to, New Jersey is one of the 5 states that we were able to get the resolution passed in. Once we got the resolution passed, we kind of disbanded because That was the whole point. I also have just largely been donating to the political campaigns of progressives that I like and believe in. But honestly, I am so thoroughly sick and tired of the Democratic Party. And with this recall of Gavin Newsom, I know that it's bad that the GOP is trying to remove him and install someone who I'm just hearing for the first time is to the right of Trump. But Gavin Newsom himself is a huge problem. And it's going to be very difficult for me to make the argument when I don't have many nice things to say about the Californian governor. And this is kind of like what we see all across the country, right? Like we're caught in this catch-22, really. It's like we keep voting for Democrats for harm reduction, and then we don't actually see it. I voted Green twice. I always vote in the primaries. I always vote for Democrats in the primaries, at least the ones that that I find represent me and are progressive and the ones that I believe in. But I am done with voting Democrat all across the board. I don't do that anymore. And some positions are just really hard to find research for. If I find that if I don't know enough about a candidate, I don't want to vote for them, because the blind voting along party lines thing hasn't really been working for us. However, in general elections, I tend to vote third party because I do believe that we need to make a third party viable in the country, at least for funding's sake, at least for the sake of getting them on the debate stage. So those are a little bit of my politics. I know that there are some people who believe that we should always vote Democrat because the Republicans are worse, but I'm not in that camp.
Okay, could you also, when you said wolf pack, are you referring to, because there's two different wolf packs that I'm aware of. There's the one that Cenk Uygur was working on, and there's the one that Tim Black has.
I'm talking about the one that Cenk Uygur was working on. He launched Wolfpack in every state in the country. And then the ones that were able to pass it in their states, I believe California was one, New Jersey was one, Vermont was one. I don't remember the other two right now, but the ones that were able to pass the resolution, it's not the type of organization that is meant to stay and, you get, there's some organizations that become more of a job, right? They say they're fighting for something, but a lot of people just stay there to get paid. It's like a grift for them, but it was never meant to be that way. It's once you get the resolution passed, you have meet your goal, and you now we're just waiting for the convention, right? And then at the convention, we would basically come together and theorize the exact wording of the amendment that we want to add to the Constitution. But it has to be pertaining to getting money out of politics and the public financing of elections, because it's really the root of every single problem in politics. It's if you have a problem with crumbling infrastructure and you don't want to see it privatized, well, all the companies that would do that flood money into the politicians. If you have a problem with climate change and you want to do something about it, the oil companies flood money to the politicians. If you want to regulate the banks, the bankers flood money into the politicians, and nothing ever gets done. It's literally the root of every single problem. So I resonated with that message. This is a few years ago. I feel like New Jersey passed it in 2017 or 2018. And I resonated with that message, and that's why I joined. I donated, I made phone calls. Basically, it was like a concerted grassroots effort to get state legislators to call for a convention. They're a lot more receptive on the state level than the federal level. Although I feel as though, I don't know how they did it in California, because I feel as though California is a bit like New York. New York is so corrupt. And I know this for a fact, because I actually, I live like 30 minutes away from New York City. And I actually started attending some of the Wolfpack meetings in New York. And New York state legislators are constantly being inundated by like real estate lobbies, because that's where Wall Street is, right? Bankers, like the top 1%ers are constantly inundating them. And I feel like California is kind of like the same way. You see it in various different ways. Like, Gavin Newsom has completely refused to regulate PSE&G, even though they are the cause of all the fires. Like, obviously climate change is playing a role, but PSE&G refuses to, abide by regulations. They're refusing to do things that would make it safer and cause less fires because they want to save money. And because of all that money they gave to Gavin Newsom is not doing anything about it. So it's really difficult, like, for me to root for him not to be recalled. But yeah, that's essentially what I did a few years ago. Since then, I've been donating periodically. I would attend protests. There's not really been anything in my area pertaining to Medicare for All, but I'm living in a blue state that is largely receptive to Medicare for All.
Tay, I don't mean to cut you off, but I also need to give David some time to introduce himself.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'm going to just take like 10 seconds and say, hey, Tay, I'm Dave Baralavi. I'm running for city council out here in Santa Clarita. I'm currently sitting on the school board. I'm a lifelong burner, progressive, and I've actually been kicked out of both Democratic clubs out here in Santa Clarita. And I had to hire a lawyer to get back into one. So
that's a badge of honor.
You're an inspiration. Everything you said is an inspiration to me, so I appreciate it. And that's really it. You go ahead, continue on. I'm just listening to you intently.
Yeah, David and I have both faced multiple smear campaigns and interference trying to influence Democratic politics. So we
and Jenna helped me out a lot, and I appreciate her for that.
So we absolutely relate to the things that you're saying, but there's also a long history in California of how the Republicans have done this to us before. When there was some backroom dealing going on with what was it Enron, David? The name of the company in Texas?
Yeah, Enron, yeah.
So apparently Arnold Schwarzenegger actually was on the background doing some deals with that. And they, the previous governor, was it Pete Wilson? I think it was, had kind of locked California into some contracts that we couldn't get out of. And the GOP completely spun it on Gray Davis and made it out like it was entirely his fault that we were stuck in these contracts. And then there was a secret recording that got released where the Enron executives were laughing at us that we were going through rolling brownouts as a result of these bad contracts because they were taking advantage of us. So it's hard to take things at face value when we know what the GOP has done to us before and how they spin things. And given how they have been overtly anti-vax, QAnon crazies in California, I don't see how putting Larry Elders in office could be at all better for us. I don't think that Gavin has done a terrible job with the pandemic. I think he's done too much to actually pander to Republicans, and that he should have done a stronger lockdown with more benefits to keep us at home. But I can assure you the GOP would have done none of that. Absolutely none of that. So one of the things that I try and look at is to not be harder on the Democratic Party than we are on the the GOP should not get a free pass for their absolute diabolicalness towards people,
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things because I don't live in California, so I have no idea like the political infrastructure surrounding the recall process. But why can't Gavin Newsom be recalled by his own party? Like I'm wondering why there isn't a progressive running against him, as opposed to this Larry guy from the Republican Party that probably wants to go mask off and, would probably enable and support anti-vaxxers.
Because the way the GOP does it, when they do a recall, they also encourage it's kind of the same thing that we saw with the presidential race last year. They encourage as many candidates as possible to run. They flood the race, and they make it so confusing to the voters. So when Gray Davis was recalled, and David, maybe you know the exact number, but I think there was over 100 people running for governor. I mean, people like Gary Coleman and Roseanne Barr, and there was so many names on the ballot that basically people voted for the names that they recognized, right? And that's what they're counting on this time around too. It really doesn't matter who puts a D or an R next to their name on the ballot. They do this to confuse people. Like we even had, when we were running Katrina Foley for supervisor here in Orange County in the special election earlier this year, there was another person running as a Democrat that nobody had ever heard of before. And we think that it was a Republican spoiler who just registered as Democrat just to put a D next to her name so that people would throw their votes against Katrina, but still be voting for Democrat. So there's a lot of misinformation that goes into this to make it as confusing as possible. And on top of it, they are expecting low voter turnout because it's a very odd time of the year to vote for us. We don't normally have elections at this time of year, so people are not paying attention. They're not paying attention. They're not checking the mail for their ballots. They don't even know what this is about right now. They're not figuring it out, So it's a strategic move to try and steal away the governorship and bring it into basically QAnon territory. And if we lose California, that's a bad thing. Because, well, we could go, I know Pete's going to jump on here at any minute, and I should be checking my text to see if he's trying to get a hold of me. But basically, that, and I'd like to learn more about this, but what I heard about the Wolfpack situation is that while it was well intended to get money out of politics, that if we had actually set up a scenario where we would have had the Constitutional Convention and introduced a new amendment, that the fact that we have more Republican governors in place right now than Democratic governors would have meant that they could have flipped it on us, got a new amendment in that had nothing to do with what we wanted and totally screwed us.
That's actually something that was going around while I was working with them. It's actually not true. I mean, the plan has been looked at by numerous constitutional law professors, and they all say that that's absolutely not true. They all need to call for a convention surrounding one issue. Like, there have been so many different attempts. Like, for example, Republicans want to balance budgets, right? The reason why they want to balance budgets is so that they can reduce, they want to hack entitlement programs and things like that. And they think it's easier to do that if they say, okay, we're going to pass a law that all budgets must be balanced. And they went around trying to do that. And I think they got a few states on the board, but if they were to get the number of states that they need to sign on to it and go to a convention, the amendment has to be about balanced budgets. It cannot be about anything else, because that was the whole purpose of Article 5. Like, if you read the writing of the Constitution, nobody can just come in and co-opt, what we came there to do. And that was also a rumor started by Common Cause, a group that gallivants around like they're trying to get money out of politics, when really they're not. They're just trying to, it's like one of those things where they don't want anything to change, because all of them have been there for 40 years. They're getting paychecks. They're taking people's donations and using it to pay themselves and build a career off of trying to get money out of politics without actually ever doing anything to get money out of politics. They say, oh, well, we're going to wait until the Supreme Court does it if the Congress can't do it. We have 6 Republican Supreme Court justices right now. So what? We're going to wait another 40, 50 years? So it's ridiculous. And that lie was spread around to deter people from actually trying to do what we need to do to add an amendment to the Constitution without the help of Congress.
We should probably have a deeper conversation at this point at a future date. I think it would be good to bring in people who are familiar with the topic and can debate it, because I don't have a lot of knowledge on it. I've just, heard certain things that because of the way the states are stacked up right now, that it would actually be very difficult for us to accomplish, and that it might backfire on us. So that might be something that we can do at a future meeting, is have a deeper, are they even still working on it? Is it still happening?
They're still working on it. It's just that they're getting stonewalled by moneyed interests, because moneyed interests have found out what they were trying to do. And then the money flows in. And a lot of times with these resolutions, it takes a long time. I know that we were working on it for a number of years. And the thing is, if they don't pass it during that time, you have to wait another couple of years before you can introduce it again in most states. Another thing I want to emphasize is that this really has nothing to do with the governors at all. These are state legislatures that have this power. It has nothing to do. It's not like they vote to pass the resolution and then the governor goes and has to have any involvement in it. It does not matter if the governor is a Republican or a Democrat, because this is a process that completely circumvents them. And it was purposefully designed this way because the founding fathers knew that at some point, Congress was going to be too corrupt to add the amendments that we needed added. And so this is kind of a process that allows the state legislatures to come together and add an amendment to the Constitution, completely through the states.
Okay, wait. So there's 2 different things going on. There's the state resolution, which is basically a statement of their values, a statement of where they stand on an issue. But then there's also the constitutional Oh, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Pete.
Thanks for having me.
Let's table this conversation. Let's jump back in it later, though, like afterwards. We don't have Mondale here yet, but I do want to go ahead and get started because I know that we have a short window with you. So this is our Orange County District Attorney candidate who is challenging Todd Spitzer, Peter Hardin. And could you tell us a little bit about your background and what your resume is that qualifies you to take over the role?
Sure, Jenna. Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to chat about it. And hi, David. Is it Tay? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing that correct. I don't know.
Yes,
right?
It's Tay. Hi.
I'm good. All right, I nailed it on the first try. Good. Thank you.
Hey, Pete. Hey, Pete. How are you?
Oh, hi. How you doing?
I'm pretty good, brother. Thank you. I'm pretty good. Thank you.
I hope I got your name correct. So yeah, thanks for having me, Jenna. I appreciate it. So, look, I was fortunate enough to grow up with wonderful, loving parents who raised me very well. I feel very privileged. My dad was a former Army soldier who later became a district court judge, and my mom was a former school teacher who raised me and my three siblings, and they believed wholeheartedly in public engagement and public leadership. They imbued in me, I think, the values that really guided them, which was servant leadership, integrity, courage, respect, and significantly compassion. And those are the values that have driven me in my career. I like to think that I at least try to live up to them and model them for my 8-year-old son who we are raising in public school here in Orange County. Certainly, those are the values that led me to my career in the Marine Corps. I served as a Marine Corps captain. That was the beginning of my prosecutorial career. I was a judge advocate and had a terrific time doing that. Before I went to Afghanistan, I served in Sangin Valley in Helmand Province, Afghanistan. And I have to note that, and I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole, I promise, but the news today of the Afghan government falling is deeply troubling, and I think raises a lot of emotions and difficult feelings in a lot of us who spent time in their life there. After I got out of the Marine Corps in 2013, when I had our little guy, we settled here in Orange County, and it was an incredibly welcoming, wonderful place to live. I was enthralled with Orange County's beauty and diversity. It is one of the most diverse counties in the country, but I'm concerned because you wouldn't know it by walking around a number of our communities. I often reflect that when I go to pick up my kiddo at school, everyone looks like me. And then when I take him home I live in Costa Mesa, right across the street from Santa Ana. And so we'll take my dog and go through the football around Memorial Park in Santa Ana. And I'm the only one that looks like me. And I get to brush up on my Spanish, which is a lot of fun. And we've made friends there. But the fact that these communities aren't talking to each other in a lot of ways concerns me. And I think has led to part of the division we're seeing between our communities and law enforcement. So I went on to serve as a prosecutor at the DA's office here in Orange County before departing to become a special assistant United States attorney with the U.S. Attorney's Office. And I practice here and in LA as well, prosecuting everything from drug trafficking to human trafficking to weapons violations, really everything under the sun that you can imagine, with a focus on identity theft and social security fraud based on a task force that I was hired to work on. I've transitioned in private practice, and I'm running because I've become concerned about the way that we're administering justice in this country and here in Orange County. I think that the way we are doing business makes us less safe, not more safe. And I want to enhance public safety. We are, practicing criminal justice as if we are stuck in the 1990s in a lot of ways. You'd never go to a doctor who hasn't updated her practice since the mid 1990s, you'd never go get your taxes done by an accountant who hasn't done his continuing education classes since the 1990s. And yet that's how we're practicing as it is now. I think it's a system that provides a lot of job security for the folks who are in it, but does not make our public more safe. And all you need to really do to confirm that is look at crime statistics. Orange County overall is a safe community, but crime and homelessness has done nothing but go up in the time that our current district attorney has been in office. And I don't just mean as district attorney, I mean in the quarter century that he has spent in public office here in Orange County. Homelessness has skyrocketed. Crime this year is up significantly, with violent crime up something like over 50% in parts of Orange County, which is really scary. And it just tells you that, the old chest thumping, quote unquote, tough on crime way of doing business is not working. I am all for holding violent offenders accountable. Everything I do is rooted in public safety, but we need to take a smarter approach. And there are communities across the country who are experimenting with this, and we can take a lot from those communities about what works and what doesn't work, and apply them here in Orange County. But to get to the second reason I'm running, none of that can be done when with a leader as corrupt as our current district attorney. And I do mean corrupt. He's facing a lawsuit for public corruption. He's facing 4 lawsuits for sexual harassment, having enabled a culture that fostered harassment. He sought to retaliate against at least one of the women for coming forward to report. He's the first district attorney in California history, I repeat that, in California history, if not the whole country, to be kicked off of a case by a judge because of his unethical treatment of survivors of sexual assault. That's an outrage. We should be doing a lot better here in Orange County. We don't have a robust press here. The Orange County Register has reported on some of these things. The Voice of OC is chiming in too. But it's an interesting media market we're in, where parts of it overlap LA and the Inland Empire and San Diego County as well. So we don't get as much coverage of these things as other places sometimes do. So, I'm running for a very simple underlying reason: to bring justice with integrity, accountability, and transparency to an office and a county that I think desperately need it.
Wonderful. Okay. So David, I do see your question, and I'm going to ask a question first. And so while I'm asking my question, if you could think of more details behind what you want to ask, since Gascon is in a different county than us, so that the viewing audience has more information about what it is that you are asking. Okay, so Pete, you are currently, I think, in the process of trying to get considered for early endorsement for the Democratic Party of Orange County. So this also, to my viewing audience, anybody who lives in Orange County, if you believe in Pete, you should be lobbying your central committee delegates to vote in favor of his endorsement. So I just want to throw that out there first. But Pete, what would you say are your major differentiators in your platform compared to Todd Spitzer? And are you aware, is anybody else running, or is it's just the two of you right now?
It's just the two, to answer the latter question, Jenna, it's just the two of us. As I geared up for this campaign and thought very deliberately about it for not months, but the last several years, I looked around. The first thing I did was look around to see if anybody else might be interested in running, particularly women or people of color. I thought that would be an interesting change for Orange County, and looked around to see if there were others behind whom I could get and lend my experience and support. I had literally hundreds of conversations, and the answer I almost invariably got was, no, Pete, you're the guy. You've got the background for it, the prosecutorial experience, and the background to appeal to voters across the political spectrum here in Orange County. So no, there's no one else who I believe is coming forward. Early endorsement would help us out a lot. And I'll tell you why. And for your listeners, I think it's important to understand this. This is a June 2022 race, not November. It takes place when the primaries would normally take place, and other primaries may be taking place. I think it's called a California jungle primary. I'm not sure exactly why, but my understanding of what that means is that, look, if there were three of us, the top two vote getters, if no one achieves 50%, go on to the November election. But because there's only two of us, we are going to achieve 50% plus at least one of the vote and defeat Todd Spitzer. So that's, and it matters so much because the normal endorsement process wouldn't happen until mid to late March of 2022, leaving us only a couple of months to get the party's help, which will be tremendously helpful to us. As you know, the party is very energized here in Orange County. Let me emphasize, though, that this is a nonpartisan race. There's no D or R after our names on the ballot, and that's important to me. It's important to me because some folks encouraged me to run for Congress a while back, and I don't want to be in a position where I'm always beholden to one party or the other. And I think criminal justice is not only my bailiwick for my entire career of practice, but it's also something that can bring us together. These are not red state issues. They're not blue state issues. These are fundamental moral, but also fiscal imperatives. And I'm happy to get into that. But so I'm very excited to earn the party's endorsement. But I also want to say that, I have a lot of success in talking with more conservative-minded voters who are interested, as I think many folks across the country are, in having an intelligent conversation about what common sense criminal justice reform looks like. A lot of people are interested in having that conversation from across the political spectrum. And I think and hope I'm the kind of candidate, and certainly the success we've had so far is due to, I think, my ability to connect with folks from all sides of the spectrum and understand concerns from across the spectrum. So I hope that answers your question, Jen.
Yes, thank you. David, do you want to ask your question? Are you muted? I didn't.
No, can you ask for me, please?
Oh, okay. All right. So David wrote some stuff in the chat here. He wrote, what's your opinion of Gascon's, am I pronouncing his name right, David? Gascon's approach to justice? Rehabilitation versus incarceration, restorative justice versus throwing the book at first-time offenders or low-level mistakes, getting rid of 3 strikes. I thought we did get rid of that legislation. Didn't we already get rid of that? No more cruelty through isolation, ending capital punishment, things of that nature.
Sure. Yeah, it's a great question, David. It's what might be the most common question that I get. And I appreciate the opportunity to answer it. Let me be clear about this. Orange County is not Los Angeles, and I am not George Gascon. I've spent more than a decade here in Orange County. Orange County has different values, a different history. While there are certain aspects of his platform that I agree with, there are significant differences as well. I believe in taking a smart approach to figuring out how to end cash bail. I think cash bail is a system that makes us less safe. Again, everything I do is rooted in community safety, and cash bail makes us less safe because wealthy, dangerous defendants can buy their way out of pretrial detention and go back into the community, while less affluent defendants are languishing behind bars. And that's not just a moral matter, that's a public safety matter too, because folks who can't afford to pay bail are more likely to be working in a low-wage job or working in an hourly wage job. And that job's not going to stick around and pay them if they're locked up for weeks before their pretrial hearing. So they're likely to lose their job. That means their home or other place of abode is put into danger. Their families are put into danger. Writ large, over thousands of cases, that fuels homelessness and crime in our communities, because we know that the number one predictor of crime in our communities is unemployment and homelessness. So we've got to take a more intelligent approach to this. One of the ways in which I differ from George Gascon is with respect to sentencing enhancements. The LADA came in with a sweeping reform to take all sentencing enhancements off the table. Look, I think blanket policies implemented in the 1990s got us into this mess in the first place in terms of over-incarceration. We live in a United States that constitutes 5% of the world's population and yet holds fully 25%. 1 in 4 prisoners who are incarcerated across the world are here in the United States. Blanket policies are part of what got us there, and I don't think blanket policies are going to get us out. So I will take a more nuanced approach to sentencing enhancements. I think that there are certainly situations in which they should apply, and others where they shouldn't. And we'll take a close look at that. And I'm confident that the office's talented prosecutors will be able to work with me together on that. And I look forward to doing that.
Did that answer your question, David? He's still muted.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, you know, there's tons of questions. I guess you're good. You know, I have a lot more questions. Like, are you for strong prosecution of law enforcement?
Oh wait, don't do that. I'm going into that next.
You got it. Bye.
I already have one there. Okay, so we here in Orange County have had some cases of alleged police brutality for quite some time. There was the Kelly Thomas case in Fullerton. We had we've had various. I think somebody was killed in Laguna Niguel that was pointed out to me. There was, last summer, there was the unhoused Black man in San Clemente that was shot in the back 3 times after he was pushed around in the middle of the street by supposedly the homeless unit, the homeless division of the Orange County Sheriff, for jaywalking, and they got in the middle of the street, started pushing him around, pulled their weapons out of their holsters, holding them on their side while the guy was unarmed and just probably had some mental issues or something. He just was trying to cross from the hotel to the 7-Eleven. They pushed him around. They got him back to the hotel side, body slammed him, and then shot him in the back 3 times. And then more recently, there was the transgender women in Huntington Beach who were attacked, and the Huntington Beach PD is trying to prosecute, well, and Todd Spitzer are trying to prosecute them when they were in fact the victims. So what as DA can you do to hold these police departments and sheriff accountable, and also to change the overall culture of this whole it's really a white supremacy sort of outlook?
Well, first of all, Jenna, let me respectfully push back a little bit. Look, I don't think, I've worked with law enforcement officers throughout my career from almost all of the 26 different police agencies across Orange County, and certainly every federal agency out there. It is not my perception that the vast majority of officers have any sort of white supremacy problem. I just don't believe that. I do understand that there have been revelations that far right-wing white supremacist groups have sought to infiltrate local police departments. Again, in my whole career of working, I've had the really just absolute pleasure of working with a lot of the best of law enforcement who want the worst of law enforcement held accountable for the same reason that when I was a judge advocate, great Marines wanted Marines who broke the law held accountable because it tarnishes the institution. The vast majority of these folks join for the right reasons. and want to do the right thing. Now, I understand there are isolated incidents, and number one thing I'll say is, I think it sort of goes, to me, it's common sense. I won't be afraid to prosecute anyone who breaks the law, period. Whether you wear a badge or whether you're the DA himself or what, people should be held accountable. And that's a no-brainer to me. I've never been a politician. It feels a little weird to be one now, I guess, because I'm running for something. But I bring that up because I don't have my eye on the next thing. I'm not trying to become DA so that I can do the next thing, which our current district attorney just has a history of doing. He doesn't care about the offices that he's inhabited. He's always got his eye on the next more important person in the room and the next more important position that he can run for. I hear from people at least on a weekly basis, if not daily, who working up and down the chain of command, both in the position where he is now and different positions throughout his career. And there's real mental instability there, and we should be concerned. So holding police officer accountable just comes down to me to prosecuting the ones who break the law. Now, changing the culture, that's a much thornier question, and I always need to remind people that if you picture an organizational chart, the sheriff's department does not fall under the DA's office. They are entirely separate institutions with different hierarchies. The only similarity is their source of funding, which is the Board of Supervisors. Now, look, I think that part of reforming law enforcement is making their job easier, not harder. They have an incredibly difficult job, having at 1 minute to respond to a violent encounter and chase down someone who violent criminals, to the next, getting the proverbial cat out of the tree. They field all types of different calls. People often say, well, Pete, why don't they get out of their cars? Why don't they get into the community more? I think a lot of them would love to do that, but it's awfully hard to get out of their cars and get into the community when they're rushing from emergency to emergency, and perhaps need a little time to decompress after those emergencies. So one thing I'm in favor of, and I know our current sheriff, love him or hate him, has talked about this, dedicating a portion of his funding to standing up a core of social workers. I call them broadly community response teams. They're called something different at every place. New York is experimenting with this. LA, all other places are. And I think we can learn a lot from other places who are doing this, because the numbers are very promising. Having a set of dedicated social workers to respond to things like homelessness or mental health issues or drug and alcohol addiction issues, or domestic disturbances, not domestic assault or abuse, but disturbances, can really ease the burden on law enforcement and make our communities safer, because these are folks who are deeply imbued in the solutions to these problems and the services such as they exist across Orange County. And that's something I really want to work on too, with the Board of Supervisors and other stakeholders across the community. Officers generally spend 90% of their time in the police academy training for violent encounters, and yet only 10% of their job is spent on those types of calls. So there's a real inversion there, and I think we can make our communities safer by standing up these community response teams, social workers who can respond to some of these calls. Look, I can't, Jen, I'm sure you'll understand, I can't comment on ongoing cases about what I would or wouldn't do. I don't have all the, first of all, I don't have all the evidence. I know what I read in the papers, and some of these incidents are really tragic and difficult for communities. But I don't have the case files. I don't have all the evidence, and I intend to become our next DA and don't want to poison the well and predetermine what I would do. Now, I will comment on the Huntington Beach issue with the two transgender women. Look, that was pretty shocking. The officer in that case apparently, withheld exculpatory evidence from his police report. And when that came to light, our current district attorney didn't do anything about it until Stephanie Wade, one of my supporters and friends, and a former Marine Corps captain herself, came forward with another individual and wrote an op-ed piece in the Orange County Register, a powerful piece about rights for transgender folks in our community. It wasn't until that and the public outcry that our current district attorney all of a sudden had a sudden about face. And it's so predictable for him. He's TV Todd. Anywhere there's a camera, he'll jump out in front of it and have words. He made the mistake of appearing uninvited to my candidacy press conference when I announced my candidacy, and stood, glowering at me behind the camera. And it sort of made me laugh. I thought you must really misapprehend me if you think you're going to intimidate me here, or if you think that you're going to allow anybody who's talking on my behalf to be intimidated. Let me be clear, that's not going to happen. You will not silence us. So he changed his tune on that, and all of a sudden those charges are dropped. And just for your listeners and other folks on here, so for your awareness, it appeared that perhaps these transgender women were attacked themselves and then used self-defense. Reasonable minds can differ as to whether self-defense was proportionate or whatever the things that they used. We could have a discussion about that, but it does appear that it was in self-defense, and that's not the way it was reported. That's not the way they were prosecuted until Stephanie Wade, who's I think a real hero, came forward to challenge that. And again, our current DA then all of a sudden changes too. It was very status quo for him.
Wonderful. And just to clarify, I did not mean to imply that all of our PDs are all of our LEOs are white supremacists or anything like that. I was saying that Orange County has a long-standing history of events, and so it has been part of our culture for a long time, and it's one of the reasons that people say we're behind the orange curtain. So it is kind of a historical thing, but I wasn't trying to imply that everybody on the police force is a white supremacist or something. I am going to get to your questions, Tay. I want to first also say that, yes, thank you so much, Stephanie Wade. And the co-author was Isabella Rubio. Thank you so much for your advocacy in this, because I know that they'll probably see this at some point. But I think Lavender Dems might actually meet on the same day as me. And so people kind of get tired with their Zoom calls. And then let's jump into Tay-Tay's questions. So she has 2 questions, and then I'll circle back up to you, David, but I have to scroll up for it. So Tay-Tay, I think they're kind of in the same vein anyway. Do you believe in ending qualified immunity? Why or why not? And will you continue to allow police departments to investigate themselves when their officers commit violent crimes?
Sure. So Tay, I confess that I'm not an expert on the qualified immunity legislation, and that's something I need to take a closer look at to define my position on. All I can tell you right now is, I'll echo what I said before, which is, if you break the law, you should be held accountable, period. It doesn't matter how, what uniform you put on in the morning, or how much money you have, or how destitute you are, or anything else, or what color you are. With respect to your second question, which I'm going to pull up in the chat, we can only go investigate themselves. So, again, it's interesting. I get so many questions like this about falling sort of under the general topic of holding law enforcement accountable. And I just want to stress again that on the sort of organizational chart, they are 2 different entities. It's not up to the district attorney to tell the sheriff what to do and how to investigate. Certainly, in so many ways, I want to expand the role of the district attorney in this county to work across all our communities, to connect stakeholders across all our communities, to make us safer, make us more diverse, get us all talking to each other in a way that elevates us and increases productivity and financial security and welcomeness to our county. So certainly, you know, I can be a leader on these things. I think it really breaks down to a case-by-case analysis, Tay. In some cases, I can imagine police departments, properly investigating issues within the department. In other cases, I can imagine the district attorney taking a role where he or she stands up and calls for an independent investigation by the AG's office. So I think that's entirely case specific. Jen, I just want to let you know that I've got to jump off in about another minute or two here.
Okay, I'll give you one more question, and then at the end of it, if you could drop your volunteer and fundraising links, and just say it verbally, but you could also put it in the chat. So this question, I just slightly rephrase your question, David, based on the fact that you're talking a lot about what is within the jurisdiction of the DA's office. And obviously, a lot of the general public has concerns about what we perceive may be corruption in other offices that we would hope that you would prosecute ultimately. What sort of remedies, what sort of tools would be at your disposal, and how would you use them to hold government bureaucracy? Well, let me read that again. Systemic bias in government bureaucracy is leading to abuse and overreach. Basically, anything that's going wrong in a parallel or sister government organization. What tools would it be? Press releases? Would it be actual litigation? Would it be activism just in your private life? How would you help move the needle in other areas of the law?
I appreciate you giving me options A, B, and C. I think option D, all of the above, is what I would choose, and I'll sort of go into that a little bit more. Look, there may be, our last, let's see, I think it was Capizzi, right, came in and said that he was going to prosecute public corruption, and then Rakakis came in, I think, on a platform that he wasn't going to do that, and then our current DA came in on a platform of cleaning up the office and rooting out corruption, and hasn't done a darn thing to do that. It's been pretty anemic leadership, which is no surprise for him given his track record. But look, I'm excited to beef up an anti-corruption and white collar crime section in the office to bring in, and those are tough cases. It's interesting. The office, at least when I was there, the district attorney's office, the white collar section was not a popular one to go to. I'm not sure I would say people, careers went there to die, but it was, it was not a sexy section to be in. At the U.S. Attorney's Office, when I was a federal prosecutor, it was the opposite. The 11th floor is a place to be for a lot of the hotshots. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And these cases take years sometimes to develop. Certainly not days and not weeks, but months and years. And you need patient people, investigators and prosecutors, who are trained to pour through financial records and put disparate pieces of evidence together. And I'm afraid we don't have that right now. One of the, I said before, I'm running on justice with integrity, accountability, and transparency. That word transparency is important to me because we don't know what's happening in the office right now. There's no transparency. It's interesting. I encourage you all to look up the San Diego district attorney's website in one window, and then put it up next to the Orange County DA's website in the next. And you'll see the difference. You can get so much more transparency about what drives the former that the latter just completely lacks. So look, I won't be afraid to do the tough work to prosecute those types of cases. They're not sexy. I talked earlier about, sort of chest thumping, tough on crime prosecutors who, no matter what time of day or night, you can guarantee that if there's a murder in this county, our current DA is going to jump up and find the nearest TV camera and jump in front of it and thump his chest. but he's not intelligent enough and doesn't have the work ethic or the heart to do the tough work beyond that, to root out the more insidious corruption in this county. And I will do that. And I won't be afraid to, I think, in the way that our current DA is. So that's one piece of it. Another piece of it, you put your finger right on, Jenna, which is, being a leader who will speak out against this stuff, whether it's working with other stakeholders across the community to get public service sort of announcement campaigns going, or not just putting out press releases, but being a leader who will speak out to groups on a regular basis and check in with groups on a regular basis. I talk with groups from the Black and African American community. I talk with groups from the Hispanic and Latino community. I talk with groups all over the place. And they say, well, are we going to hear from you again? Or is it going to be 4 years? And I said, no, absolutely not. This is the first of many conversations. I want to be accessible to these groups. I want to introduce myself, and then let's have an ongoing dialogue so that I can keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening. And so my staff knows what's going on out in our communities. You can't live in the ivory tower and never get out and know what's going on. And that's exactly what our current deputy or our current district attorney does. I'll just a little example of that. The office was solicited by Nick Gerda, a reporter for the Voice of Orange County, to find out, hey, a pretty simple question: what's the #1 most prosecuted crime in Orange County? And our district attorney wouldn't or could not answer that question. That in itself is outrageous. It took this reporter, hundreds of dollars in public access requests and months to find out what the #1 most prosecuted crime is in Orange County. And drum roll, please, it turns out that it's possession of drug paraphernalia. That's dumb. There's very few other words for it. We need to be, instead of criminalizing drug and alcohol addiction and mental health issues and homelessness, which I saw time and time again, and doubling down on this revolving door system that creates a lot of job security for folks in the system, but doesn't make our communities safer. We need to be treating those underlying issues as a public health crises that they are. It's not to say that you take the stick away, but there are a lot more carrots that can be put into the system. You're not going to get everybody. A lot of folks in my life have struggled with drug and alcohol addiction and mental health issues. And I certainly know that you can't help someone unless they reach rock bottom. And for a lot of people, when they hit the criminal justice system, it is rock bottom, and that's a golden opportunity to help those people, get them the services they need, that more affluent folks treat in-house, so to speak. I kind of put that in quotes, but I'd be the first to admit that I come at this from a privileged point of view. I've always sought to push my boundaries and understand other communities, but folks I grew up with who struggle with alcohol and drug addiction or mental health issues, you get a psychiatrist, or you go to drug treatment, or you go to rehab. And but for less affluent folks, and in some of our communities of color, there are barriers to that, including cultural stigma, but also, of course, financial. It's awfully tough for folks to pony up $30,000 for 21 days in rehab at a fancy place in Arizona or Minnesota, which is where some of the rehab places are. So, again, either from whether you think of it as a moral issue or a fiscal issue or both, these are imperatives. We've got to work together and better as a community and as a society, not just here, but across the country, to implement programs that will treat those underlying issues. Otherwise, we continue to jeopardize public safety, and we further the divide between law enforcement and our communities as we disenfranchise generations and generations of folks from our less affluent communities and communities of color. And again, the cycle continues and it makes us less safe. Sorry, I've spoken so much. I usually like to listen a lot more than I speak, but those were really fantastic questions that got me going. I am afraid I have to leave you guys to make my next appointment here, but thank you for talking with me. I hope that we can continue the conversation in the months to come, and be grateful if you consider supporting me. Oh, you asked for my website and all that. The website is petehardin.com. All the links that you need should be there. I'll drop in the email for my campaign manager if you want to reach out with any more questions or set up further events and stuff like that. And then I'll just give you a real quick update on the campaign. We're about 4 months in right now. We've earned a ton of great endorsements. They're not all up on our website, but we've earned endorsements from, Congressman Mike Levin, Harley Ruda, Alan Lowenthal, State Senator Josh Newman, a whole host of local elected officials and labor unions, and those continue to come in. I continue to have those conversations. Fundraising has been terrific. We out fundraised my opponent up through June 30th, that is, which was fantastic. We've raised almost $400,000. That's our goal for the end of the summer here, so that we could start looking at office space and arming the small army of volunteers that have really expressed interest in getting the word out there about this campaign and my candidacy. So I'd be grateful for your consideration in that respect and in all other respects, and let's keep in touch.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for joining us. And, in regards to your last answer, we have a facility in a defunct facility from when they took all the money away out of mental health that is in Costa Mesa that's called Fairview. And that might be something that you might want to talk to Katrina Foley about, whether or not some space could be allocated there for drug rehab for lower income individuals and maybe mental health services, because it's an enormous facility. Thank you so much, Pete Hardin. And I will include your link and contact information when I redo the title for this video. It is on the Our Revolution Southern California page. And thank you so much. I know you have another appointment.
Sounds good, Jenna. Thank you so much, David. Thanks for hanging out, listening. Tay, thank you both for your questions. Have a great rest of the weekend.
All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Okay, so in the last 10 minutes of the meeting, I just give it an opportunity for whoever is on the call, if you have any sort of activism, any events that are coming up, any things that you're working on, if you want to give a shout out to get people involved in things that you, now that you've attended a meeting, you're a member of my chapter. So if you have anything that you want to advertise in this moment, I know David is running for city council. So do you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, I'm very excited. Things are going great. Our fundraising is going wonderfully. If anybody's interested in supporting our campaign, just go to my website, ehd22.com, and please help out. And we're building a movement out here in Santa Clarita. And we're building a movement amongst Democrats, Republicans, and independents. And everybody's excited about my campaign. And hopefully we can pull it through. November 22 comes along. Thanks, Jenna.
Thank you, David. Tay, is there anything that you want, is there anything you're working on that you want to advertise in this moment?
No. I actually have a question about these elections that they are running for. When is election day for both of them? Okay. For the person that just left and for David.
David's is a year out, right, David? You're 2022, right?
Yeah, November of 22.
Okay, but Pete is actually going to be in the primary. So city council generally is on the November ballot. But for what Pete was talking about, the jungle primary in California, when you're in the primary, it's not that you don't get advanced up based on your party unless you're running for president. So for instance, in the presidential election, we nominate a Democrat, or we nominate a Green Party, or we nominate a Republican as the contenders on the general election. But for everything else, it's what's considered a jungle primary, and it's the top 2 vote getters advance. So Pete is working towards, I think it's June of next year.
Oh, okay. So this is like, it's very early, but it's good to get started early, right?
Oh yes, because these are big money races, and Orange County is probably the top fundraising county for the GOP. And they have become increasingly terrified of us because we flipped all of our congressional seats in 2018. So the county is moving further left. It's freaking them out. And so they're dumping more and more money out here. And we have, I mean, we even had Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz out here just like 2 weeks ago trying to do rallies, and they kept getting turned away. So the county is really moving to the left and saying no to QAnon.
I heard that they lost money on that.
I bet they did, because they couldn't find a venue. And so they ended up doing an illegal rally. They just like did something without permission. They didn't have the paperwork or permits to do it. I don't think they got in trouble for it per se, but they didn't, it wasn't permitted. And the other thing is they went to I think it was Huntington Beach, to do photo ops, and they got trolled by some of our local comedians because we're a little bit comedic trollish out here in Orange County. So that was going viral on Twitter a couple weeks ago too, when they came out. Somebody dressed up with an American flag shirt and a hat and everything, and said, "I don't believe you're a pedophile, Matt Gaetz." Got the whole thing on video. And
I cannot believe he hasn't stepped down. Like, I just cannot believe it. Like, he's like the Andrew Cuomo of Congress, because like when the news first came out about Andrew Cuomo, like, we were telling him to step down. Well, I mean, we've hated him for years, right? But like, the reason why you want to step down is so that everything that plays out is not in the viewing public. You know what I mean? Like, mainstream media wouldn't have picked up the story if he wasn't still governor, but he was so stubborn about it. And now it's like this completely embarrassing mess. And I have secondhand embarrassment, because even though I'm not a Democrat anymore, I'm an independent who mainly votes with the Green Party. I used to be a Democrat. I used to be registered Democrat. And oftentimes, in order to vote for the primary in my state, in New Jersey is closed primary. I think I told you that the other day, and you were explaining how California has like a roundabout solution to that. So hearing things like that, and like, you know, growing up in a blue state and everyone around me is a Democrat, like, we are all collectively embarrassed by Andrew Cuomo. And now we have Matt Gaetz, who should have read the tea leaves and, you know, resigned quietly, go take a lobbyist job, or, I mean, there's going to be opportunities for him once he leaves Congress either way. But no, he's sticking it out. And now, like, the whole nation, and, you know, the Republicans don't have any ability to feel shame, right? Like, the shame that we feel for Cuomo, it's not part of their DNA to feel shame about it.
Well, and that's exactly why he's not resigning, is because he knows that as a Republican, he can totally get away with it.
I guess that's true, yeah. The two of them together are fascinating. These are the same people that made the argument that Hillary Clinton was running a pedophile ring at the bottom of a pizza shop, right?
Yep.
Meanwhile, the real pedophile is like right there.
Yep. Yep. And they were just trying to fundraise, not only in the northern parts of Orange County, but in my backyard in Mission Viejo and Laguna Niguel. So they were all over the place here a couple weeks back, trying to get some money out of our Republicans. But
I feel so stupid too, because I actually defended Matt Gaetz Okay. Because like, I know he's a Republican and everything, but that's not a, that's not a foregone conclusion. Right. And
Right.
he, throughout his time in Congress, like, I know he's made decisions that I don't agree with, but he's always been a defender of like anything having to do with conversations involving sex. He's basically always defended women about it. Like that Democratic representative that was forced out of Congress because of a scandal that she had with her staffer. I
Katie
forgot
Hill.
her name. It's Katie something. Katie Hill. Yeah. He defended her. Like he 100% like didn't care that she was that. He was like, this is bullshit. So like, and that's not the first time he's done that. So I really respect him for that. So when the stories first started coming out, I was like, oh, he's a young guy and young guys get caught up doing things that they shouldn't do. And I think that people are blowing it out of proportion. And I literally could not believe that the allegations were true. But like now we have more information and like I feel so duped, like that I completely bought it, but that's what you get for defending a Republican. I don't even know why I did that.
Yeah, it's complicated. It also adds a whole different aspect to why he supported her. And
right?
Yeah, I've seen that happen in more personal situations too, of people I know who have defended people for certain reasons because they themselves do the same thing, So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap up here. I'm just going to conclude by saying that our September meeting is going to be homelessness activists from Orange County and you might like this, Tay, because Jackson Hinkle was coming after Anna Kasparian recently about her nuanced position on homelessness.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackson has attended one of my chapter meetings before. I invited him to speak. He has never attended as a participant. He has only attended as a speaker. But I am not aware that he has ever worked with any of the homeless activists in all of Orange County. So I'm inviting 3 of them, and hopefully I can get all 3 to come and do a panel on Orange County homelessness and to talk about the nuanced reasons for why people are on the streets.
Yeah, I would actually love to be part of that discussion. I mean, I live in New Jersey, so, homelessness is a nationwide problem. I don't believe that the homelessness levels in New Jersey are as high as the ones in California, or even 1/2. So I'd love to at least be a listener in that panel and find out more information.
Absolutely. I would love it if you'd come.
Oh, but you said it's in September?
Right. So we meet on the 3rd Sunday of every month, unless there's a holiday, then I push it out a week. So the next meeting's going to be September 19th at the same time. 4 p.m.
Okay.
Pacific.
All right. I mean, I can't promise I'll be there. The semester will start. I'm actually in school. I'm doing a master's program in nursing. I'm a nurse, so I can't promise I'll be there, but I will try to be there. And also, could you put it in the chat like you did last time in case I'm there?
Yes, actually, when you signed up, it's the same. I think it's almost the same link, but I'll circle back with you. I'll put it in the Twitter chat.
Yeah. So, okay, this has been lovely. I will let you go because I'm sure you want to end the meeting.
All right. Thank you so much for attending. Tay, David, do you have anything else you want to say before you jump off? All right, he's not unmuting. So with
it was great. It was great seeing you both. Great hanging out.
okay, thank you so much,
Great
both of you.
discussion too. Thank you, Jenna.
All right,
good luck on your race. Good luck on your race. If I don't see you again, good luck.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. All the way from New Jersey. I love it. Thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you both, and have
Bye,
a good
guys.
evening. Bye-bye.